Empathy is often celebrated as the great connector, the force that allows us to step into another's shoes and understand their pain, joy, or struggles. But what if this is an illusion? What if empathy is not a bridge to others, but rather a mirror reflecting ourselves back at us? Instead of truly understanding others, perhaps we are merely projecting our own experiences, biases, and emotions onto them, mistaking our reflection for their reality. The illusion of understanding. When we claim to feel someone's pain, what are we really experiencing? Neurologically, mirror neurons activate when we observe another person's emotions, simulating their state within our own mind. But does this mean we genuinely understand them, or are we simply running their experience through our own mental filter? For example, when we see a grieving friend, we recall our own past losses to approximate what they must be feeling. But their grief is not our grief. Their internal world remains inaccessible. We do not truly know their suffering. We are only translating it into something we recognize. Empathy, then, may be less about connecting with others and more about reaffirming our own emotional landscape. Furthermore, our emotional responses are influenced by personal history, culture, and individual temperament. The same event that deeply affects one person might leave another feeling indifferent. This variance suggests that our attempts to empathize often rely on assumption rather than actual understanding. We impose our emotional vocabulary onto others and call it connection, even when their experience may be vastly different. Empathy as a projection. Philosophically, empathy could be seen as a self-centered act rather than an altruistic one. When we say, "I feel for you," is it really about them? Or is it about how we would feel in their place? If a person reacts to tragedy with cold detachment, do we assume they lack emotion, or do we impose our own expectations of grief onto them? In this way, empathy becomes a projection, a means of mapping our reality onto someone else's rather than stepping into theirs. It is less a selfless act of understanding and more an unconscious assumption that their emotions must resemble our own. Additionally, the degree of empathy we feel is not universal. Studies suggest we are more empathetic toward those who resemble us, whether in appearance, background, or belief systems, while struggling to extend the same emotional depth to those outside our perceived in-group. This selective empathy creates biases that shape social and political landscapes, reinforcing divisions rather than bridging them. The dangers of empathetic distortion. If empathy is a projection rather than true understanding, it has profound consequences. It can lead to misjudgments, where we assume we know what others need rather than truly listening to them. It can create unintended bias, favoring those whose pain is easier for us to relate to while neglecting those whose struggles do not mirror our own. In leadership, an overly empathetic leader may make decisions based on how they would feel in a situation, rather than considering the broader impact. In relationships, empathy may lead to frustration when the other person does not react as expected, because we have substituted their reality with our own emotional template. Furthermore, excessive empathy can lead to emotional exhaustion and burnout, particularly for caregivers, therapists, and those in helping professions. The weight of constantly absorbing others' emotions can become overwhelming, ultimately diminishing one's ability to provide meaningful support. Beyond empathy, true connection. If empathy is flawed as a means of understanding others, what is the alternative? The key may lie not in feeling for others, but in actively seeking to know them. This requires humility, the willingness to accept that their experience is separate from our own. It demands patience, deep listening, and an acknowledgement that our interpretations of their emotions may be incomplete or even incorrect. Instead of saying, "I know how you feel," perhaps the more honest approach is, "I do not know, but I am here to listen." True connection does not come from mirroring, but from acknowledging and respecting the vast, unknowable depths of another human being. Developing true connection also involves emotional intelligence, the ability to recognize emotions in others without becoming consumed by them. It requires discernment to distinguish between when to engage empathetically and when to step back and offer support through reasoned action rather than emotional absorption. Empathy is not a bridge. It is a mirror. It reflects not the person before us, but our own understanding of emotions, shaped by personal experience. When we recognize this, we can move beyond mere projection and towards genuine connection, not by assuming we know, but by embracing the mystery of the other. Ultimately, true understanding does not require us to feel another's emotions as if they were our own. It requires us to acknowledge that their emotions are uniquely theirs, existing beyond the limits of our perception. By shifting from empathetic assumption to mindful engagement, we open the door to deeper, more meaningful human interactions. So, what do you think? Is empathy a tool for connection, or have we misunderstood its role all along? Share your thoughts.